Hi folks, this is all the fruit. I'm in the Nahe Valley in the west of Germany, and here there are lots of those giant structures. They are called graduation towers, but I would rather call them graduation walls because they are like 50 to 100 to sometimes a couple hundred meters long and quite narrow, basically like a giant ancient castle or city wall. Well, another thing we have a lot here in the Nahe Valley, because its slopes are quite dry and rocky, you can see the slopes here in the background, is blackthorn bushes. Yeah, in dry and warm areas for German standards, blackthorn grows quite well on dry and rocky slopes. Right here, I don't have such a dry and rocky slope nearby. That's why I picked a little branch of the blackthorn just to show you what the blackthorn is. The fruit not only look like tiny plums, they are also one of the parent species of the domestic plums. So this is Prunus spinosa, basically the spiny plum if you want, and Prunus domestica is the domestic plum. And this is one of the parents of the domestic plum. You can use it for a lot of things. For example, you can graft domestic plums and also some other Prunus species on it. You can actually eat the fruit in autumn, usually after a frost or after they've been hanging on the tree for quite a long time. You can make one of the best liquors from them, and you can use them to make different preserves. But there is also another way to use them, and it's in those graduation towers or walls. What's a graduation tower? Well, basically, here in the Nahe Valley, we have a lot of big salt water springs and wells. And this salt water was basically the base of the local economy. It was being boiled down in big salt pans, and then the salt was being sold. Yeah. And yeah. But the thing is that the less water you need to boil to get your salt, the better. So people would build those graduation towers where the water would run over blackthorn twigs, and basically part of the water will evaporate, so the amount of timber they needed to use for the boiling of the remaining salt water would be less. And also there are lots of salts which are quite bitter, like kalium and magnesium and calcium salts, salts you don't want in your cooking salt, and those will also stick to the blackthorn branches, and thus you will get salt of a much better quality. Yeah, here in the Nahe Valley there are tons of those graduation towers. Nowadays you don't need them for the production of salt anymore, and I don't think that salt is being produced in such a giant amount here. So what do you need them for? Well, let's go a little bit closer. And why do you need the blackthorn twigs? Why can't you take any random twigs? Here, look at that. The water is pumped up there, then it's running through all those little blackthorn twigs in this giant wall. And then down here is the more concentrated salty water, which now would normally be boiled for the production of salt. Well, the cool thing for biologists is, for botanists, that there are some coastal plants like those little grasses and Caryophyllaceae, and also some Chenopodiaceae and other plants which are usually not being found inland, but here around the salt pans and around the graduation towers they grow quite well. So let's get here, let's compare them. Here my fresh blackthorn twig, and here those blackthorn twigs which have been cut and used. You can basically use other twigs too, but everybody is using blackthorn twigs because they seem to be the best. Somehow the spines seem to be quite good for concentrating all those salts you don't want in your kitchen salt, and also for evaporating water. And those salts are so hard, they are not like cooking salt, they are not soluble, they are not easily soluble like cooking salt. So after you use those twigs for a couple years, I think 2 or 3 years, they are so hard they are basically petrified. And so another use was they would take those twigs, crush them, and then they would use them to pave roads, because the salt was basically rock hard and didn't dissolve like table salt. Well, nowadays, as I said, those structures are not necessary for salt mining, for salt, for salt boiling anymore. So why do they have so many? Here they have one, but over there behind the trees is another one. And when I drive downriver, there will be about 10 more, as far as I know. Why do I still have so many of those? Well, turns out that while that water is running down through those blackthorn twigs, a lot of salt water just, well, not just evaporates, because the salt wouldn't evaporate, but a lot of this water, or not a lot, but some of this water basically, will disperse in the air in tiny droplets. Originally, this was not desired. They wanted the water to evaporate and not to disperse in little droplets, which would take away some of the salt. But then somebody realized that people who would work around those graduation towers and spend a lot of time around those graduation towers, that their asthma and hay fever and other lung diseases improved. Just like if you send them to the seaside, which is quite easy to explain once people noticed it. Well, at the seaside you also have those little droplets of salt water in the air. Let's go to the other side. It seems like this side of the graduation tower is not in service right now, but the other side is. Oh yeah, look at that. This one is working right now. See, the water is being pumped up there, and then it's being released in fine streams, and here down on those over those blackthorn twigs. It gets caught in the blackthorn twigs, and this was apparently this was efficient enough to reduce the use of fuel for the salt production a lot. And now I can also feel the salt spray, and I see it on my phone. I don't know if you can see it on the lens. And nowadays those areas are actually big spas with tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of visitors a year only in the Nile Valley, and millions worldwide. Those people tend to sit around the graduation towers or go on a walk around the graduation towers and breathe in this salt spray, which helps them improve asthma, hay fever, and other respiratory conditions. And for some strange reason, it's blackthorn with its thorns, which is the best. You could replace it with other types of shrubbery, but everybody is using blackthorn, despite the fact that it's not the easiest twigs to obtain. So folks, this was quite an unusual use for blackthorn, for salt production, for the paving of roads, and for the treatment of respiratory diseases. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful country of Germany, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.